Welcome to another episode of No Ordinary Woman, where we recognise and celebrate women of all ages and all stages. I'm Fiona Briffa, and I've got another Fiona joining me today, Fiona Luca. Hi.
Hello, Fiona. So nice to be here.
So nice to have you here. I feel like it's really funny when you're talking to someone with the same name because you feel like you're talking to yourself. But anyway, let's just move past that. I've got Fiona. Fiona is going to talk to us today about her journey of rediscovery, like a pivot point in your life where you had decided to end a business that you had poured your heart and soul into for 12 years and you wanted to change directions. Can you just talk us through what led to that moment and that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you never go into creating a business or building a baby, if you like, because essentially was my first, with the intention of exiting. You know, I mean, and now good practice is to create a business with an exit strategy. But I was 25 when I started my performing arts studio. I had just finished traveling and touring 3 years overseas, Europe and the UK, as a performer and choreographer.
Oh, wow.
And knew where I was about to open my business, which was in the region of Geelong in Victoria, that there was a market for what I could offer. So I was 25. I was in business partnership. I opened this business and there was no forward thinking. There was no strategy. There was no business plan. It was all heart and soul. It was all heart and soul. So what was a little side hustle ended up 12 years later being a really huge business. I brought out my business partner in year 5, and from there really took the plunge in and committed wholeheartedly to this business and got to the point where I had 11 staff, 350 students. I had built an enormous community and reputation in my region. I was freelancing as a choreographer all over Australia essentially, and I had my first child, and I always made a real commitment to myself after being born and bred small business with a mum that was always tied up in work, to have time to be a mother, to be a present mother, and to prioritize not missing the really important and sometimes small poignant moments in my baby's and children's development. And I felt that that was being swayed. And not only that, I am a very committed, all-in person, and if I was going to be the director of this studio, I had to give it everything I had. That was my mentality at the time. And so I was in this business. It was about me, if I'm being really honest. I wasn't smart enough as a businesswoman in that time to work on the business. I was working in the business and on it and all of the above. I was tired. My marriage was a bit rocky, and I had my new little baby, and I just was feeling this feeling of lack of joy. And I did not love my business and I did not love my child, but I didn't love doing them together. I didn't know how to even navigate them together. And I got to a point, I was pregnant with my second child, and I felt like I had to make a decision. And I said it was either, the only decision was one way, really. I certainly couldn't stop being
a mum. It's either the kids or the business.
Right. So, obviously we know which way that was going to go, but there was no foresight to how I could make it work. It was a black and white decision for me. And I know that's because I was in burnout. I was in burnout, and I got to a space where there wasn't clarity. I was really ungrounded, and I was living in flight or fright. I was in my sympathetic nervous system. I was in panic mode constantly, and I just had to do something to get out of that rut. And that was, to sell that business. And so I did that. Unfortunately for me, my administration manager at the time that had been with me the entire time brought the business. I stayed within the business for about 3 years, and it was the hardest decision of my life. Well, probably my first hardest. My second was my marriage separation, but it was the hardest decision of my life in that point. And I remember so vividly sharing it. I filled my entire studio with my community, and I was 12 weeks pregnant at the time, or nearly 13 weeks pregnant. And I remember telling them what we had done because the negotiations were done. And I can't even explain the emotion that I was overwhelmed with when I was sharing that. It was a sob. It was a sob. And I think there was pain. I think there was grief. I think there was relief.
Yeah.
I think there was absolute fear. I mean, it was just, and it was really well received. I nourished the business with the new owner for another 3 years, and then I knew it was time to part ways with it. And now it's insane. I had built a beautiful community, and I still am friends. I bump into them all the time, but it's like this distant memory.
Yeah.
You know, this thing that consumed me for 12 years, and now it's like this other lifetime.
Yeah.
But it put me in good stead moving forward in regards to continuing to love business, but really acknowledging where I went right and where I went wrong.
Yeah.
Go again.
You can only discover that when you've done it. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of women considering a business or considering changing from maybe corporate to going into something, think you need to know what you're doing before you start, and you don't. And there's just got to be that, just start it. But even with that, having built something for 12 years and then going, this is not serving me anymore, is just as hard to end something as it is to start something, would you say?
100%. And, you know, and in regards to the not serving me concept, I mean, I loved my students. I loved to teach dance. What had happened was it got so big so quickly.
Yeah.
So big so quickly. I didn't feel like I had the resources or support. I mean, I didn't have a business coach. I had an accountant, and I had a husband, and I had my mum and dad that were guiding me. But I didn't have the nous in that time to have the support around me to hold me up. So I was lost in this business, and I felt like the reason why I opened it was to instill the love of dance and to really mentor these young people to find their potential. I feel like I couldn't even do that because I was so caught up in the everyday run of it. I was so busy. Exactly.
Yeah. So it was like the reason you started in the first place got lost in the running of the business. And that can happen a lot. Like I've seen that happen to a lot of people. And that's when burnout happens, because you don't have enough to fill your cup as you're pouring out to everybody else around you. And then, burnout hits, and then you suddenly lose your passion for it, because it becomes something that you can tend to even resent, because it's like, wait, where's the joy in this now? So if you were to go back and do that again, what would you do differently? Say 1 or 2 things you would do differently, for example.
So funny you asked that question, because I am back doing it again. And the piece that came out, the biggest piece that came out for me, 2 things, was that I had lost Fiona in the business.
Yeah.
I was Fiona, the director of Infinite Dance Studios. I wasn't Fiona Luca.
Yeah.
The heart-centered, ambitious, kind, nurturing human being that I am, right? You know, there's a few other things that probably aren't so positive, but that's okay. We're all human beings. But it's like I'd lost me in it. Yeah. So I have spent the best part of 6 years going back and reclaiming my sense of self through yoga, through meditation, through so much study, through finding pause and making big decisions. That was my first piece. So continuing to stay connected to me and give time back to me. And the second piece was I am now obsessed with leadership and everything about leadership. And I think one of my really strong assets is building community. I love to build community, and I know I'm good at it. I'm great at piecing all the right people together in the same room and having them connect. But what I wasn't necessarily wonderful at is I was kind to my staff and respectful and supportive, but I don't think I led well, because A, I didn't allow myself to be vulnerable in leadership, and B, there was too much ego associated with my role as director. Not that I presented egoic, but it was almost like, well, it's mine and I have to
controlling everything.
I do it better, controlling everything. I almost now see how I almost disempowered my staff because I never gave them an opportunity to step up, because I kept bloody stepping up for everybody else. You know, and that's probably the 2 most poignant things that I've taken away. And now in leadership, again, with my own team and scaling my business and so forth, it's really empowering my staff, really learning about them as individuals, and realizing that I can stay the place of visionary and CEO and let this incredible thing unfold in front of me, because I've nurtured it and establish the morale of the business and what it means.
Those are some really important points. And I know that whether or not you are in business or whether you work for somebody else, but particularly women that step out there and go out in their own business, when you usually start as that lone ranger that you've got to build it up yourself before you can afford. It's like the chicken and the egg. Like, I need someone else, but I can't afford someone else until I get someone else, and then I'll have the money for someone. And I've done it. I've been there before, and have found myself at burnout as well, because you are trying to do everything, and the problem is that you've got to take care of the other details. So that control, where you're trying to control everything because you won't let anything go, because this is mine and this is what I've created. But then you're doing all the stuff that actually drains you of your energy, because it's not your gift, it's not your area, it's just not what you love doing. But you've got to do that while you're doing the part that you love. So for you, it was the dancing and creating that thing. So you're being drained by one end and only being filled, which creates this imbalance, doesn't it? And I think that many people go through that. It's like, but it's like my baby. It's like trying to hand your child over to somebody to look after. You're not going to do it as well as I would, because this is my passion, this is my baby. But we then do ourselves a disservice because we burn ourselves out trying to have our fingers in all the pies.
So true.
Yeah. And like you said, I think that being able to acknowledge where you've gone right and where you have needed I don't say go wrong, but where you've needed to improve, the areas for development, is in leadership. And that just sort of gives you a really open mind to doing things completely differently in leading others to succeed. And when they succeed, you succeed.
100%.
And it takes all the pressure off, doesn't it? You now are not responsible for doing anything except, and this is, I think, leadership 101. If you help your team members succeed, then that's your only job. And then your business succeeds as well. Yeah.
100%.
So what do you get most joy out of now that you've been able to do that?
I continue to get joy out of, and it's funny, you can dabble your hat and dabble your fingers in all of the pies, right? But when you truly discover your essence, your purpose, why you're here, what you're good at, what you love to do, I think that showcases in any work that you do. So to be really honest, even though I never dedicated time to the premise behind my first business or the values or what I did, I was doing it anyway because I was always aligned with my heart and with my soul. So what I love to do and what I've always loved to do is to ignite somebody else's inner flame. Is to almost flash the mirror back up them and help them see themselves and access their potential and find a part of themselves that they didn't even know existed. And that's what I love to do.
That if every leader had that burning need inside them, then every team would absolutely level up. It's that helping the other people find what makes them successful. And I think that's like when you talk about reclaiming your light. So you went through this transition in your life and do you know what? It can happen in business. It can happen just through having children as well. I've worked with lots of women who have just completely lost their identity, and women tend to be so busy looking after everybody else that they lose their identity in everybody else's needs. And so being a mum is one thing that does it, but owning a business can be another thing. If you are not really conscious and intentional about making sure you're standing in your truth and you're doing enough of what brings you joy. And so when you found yourself getting lost in the busyness and not being able to see the forest for the trees, you took that step back and just reclaimed, hang on a minute, who is Fiona Luca and what does she want and what brings her joy? And that was your turnaround moment, wasn't it?
Huge, and so much so, Fiona, that it was in that moment of space that I actually realized I was in a marriage that I was unhappy in.
Yeah.
I was so busy with the business. I was so busy playing mum. I was so busy wearing all of the hats that I was coming home to an environment that, and it was a mutual decision that was bringing neither of us joy.
Yeah.
And that was another big, I've had many defining moments in my life so far. I'm sure there's many more to come, but that was a really big piece of it, So not only was I consumed and burnt out in this business that I'd given my heart and soul to and I couldn't see the light, I was then assuming this perfect role of the mother and feeling all the shame and guilt associated with what we do as new mothers.
Yes.
And then in a marriage that I didn't feel joy in, it wasn't giving back to me. Connection had been lost. We weren't bringing out the best side of each other. We weren't a team.
Yeah.
And so I reached a point that was really rock bottom, that was really rock bottom. And I'm a very strong-willed person, and I have a very brave face. I mean, I'm a performer through and through. So I knew how to navigate that in a way that would be acceptable to conventions and societies. But, the one person you can't lie to is yourself. And when you do go through, or indulge in things like yoga and meditation, where you are encouraged and almost forced to stop and to pause and to listen, it all comes up. It all comes up, and we can do anything we can to keep pushing down. But the reality is that that's only going to manifest in some other dis-ease or any other way later on down the track. And I'm one of my biggest values is integrity. And what I learned in that period of time, in the in-between, is that I wasn't aligned with my integrity. I wasn't leading from integrity, and I had to, we had to call the kettle black, and we had to be really honest with our situation and where we were at. And that was freaking huge.
Yeah.
It is huge. It still is huge. And and I'm really proud of myself. I'm really proud of myself, and I'm really proud of ourselves for being honest. And for being truthful to ourselves, and putting ourselves first and our children first, because it was a decision for the entire family.
Definitely. And
I don't know how we got there, but that was a new revelation.
Yeah. And it's not one you take lightly. And I think you got to that point where you needed to rediscover. And I think the points there are, sometimes you've got to take a step back, and not sometimes, but frequently you have to take a step back and take some time out to just constantly just observe where you are in your business, in your work, in your relationships, in life in general. Just take some time out, because we get so caught up in the busy, and busy has kind of become normal, and I don't think that's okay. Like, you've got women who are trying to be full-time mums, full-time workers, full-time wives, full-time everything for everybody, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you only have a finite amount of waking hours in a day. Where is your time to sit back, to constantly reflect and go, what did I do well today? What do I need to improve on? How did I feel today? Doing some, not over analyzing, but just some reflection. And most women will tell me they don't do it in the morning, they don't do it in the night. And we get so busy. And taking time out, like the top performing businessmen and women around the world take full weeks out just to sit and think and ponder and reflect and plan, and at least a time every week or time every day to do it. But when you've got your own business and you're a mum, you don't often get any time out, but you can't keep running around that hamster wheel. You've got to jump off it every now and then, just go, what's working, what's not working, what's bringing me joy, what's not. And also just rest, where you're not thinking about anything. It's just like, today I'm going to go for a walk and look at the blue sky and the trees, and give my brain a bit of space. This is something I think
it's that really interesting analogy, Fiona, of auditing our life. I mean, what we do is we seek outside of ourselves to feel or to find or access the joy, the success, the love, the happiness, and in all the work that I've done and in the work that I do with young people and with women, it's like we need to audit and assess what's actually going on inside, and what leads us and drives us to make the decisions that we make. So me getting my point to a point of burnout was that old inherited value and conditioning and belief from my parents and their parents of, you've got to work hard. Work equals success, money equals success. The harder you work, or what you can show on the outside, determines how valuable you are on the inside, and all of that nonsense. And it's like, hold on a minute, why do I have to access everything outside of me, or keep adding layers to a foundation that's not stable, that's not rocky? So, the biggest piece for me, and what I share with everybody that I work with, is like, audit your own personal space right now? What's the
Yeah.
heart saying? What's the soul saying?
Yep.
What's your environment saying? Because that's a reflection of your inner world, you
Yep.
know?
And if you're constantly chasing something, you are never going to get there. And that's when we push success over the cognitive horizon, because it's always in our next thing that we can achieve, or the next piece of hard work. I think one of my favorite sayings is, I have everything I need for my present happiness right here, right now. And when we can get that mindset right around being happy and fulfilled and content just with where I am right now, we then don't lose our identity in what we do or what we can achieve or who we can help. It's just like, do you know what? I'm happy right now. I'm like alive. I'm healthy. I've got food in my cupboard. I've got great friends and family. The sun is shining outside. I don't need to achieve anything in this moment. And then we can be in a place where we can just fully give to ourselves and give to what we do, because we're not actually trying to achieve something. We're just being instead of doing.
So true.
I just got real profound there, didn't I?
That was very philosophical.
Yeah, it's just something that we keep losing. And I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said it's inherited. We inherit these beliefs from, and you know, they were great. They worked for the previous generations, but they are not working for us in this generation or the next generation. And well, that is
ours. They're not ours.
They're not ours. And we play to those rules.
We do, 100%. Yep.
And we need to break those
everyone's
rules.
born with a different set of values, with a different set of beliefs, but we adopt somebody else's, normally our parents or our immediate community as young people's, because that's what we see in front of us, you know. And it's so crazy, Fiona. I work with so many women and so many young people, and then the mothers of these young people are going, I don't know how this young person, why they're like this, you know. And I'm like, because the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Like,
they're watching.
You know? Yeah.
You can tell them anything, but they're watching. They're not listening to what you say. They're watching what you do. And I think that's what's really important. And I think it really is all about identity and knowing who you are. And this is why I love what you do with young people, with your On Purpose.
So On Purpose is the work that I do with women, which is essentially reclaiming sense of self and identity aside from the conventions. But young people is talking youth.
Talking youth. Yeah. It's teaching them how to know who they are right at the beginning, before they fall all over themselves like we all did trying to discover it, knowing their unique, authentic, amazing self, and then just being able to stand in that truth. I think just the more of us that can stand in our truth, be vulnerable, know who we are and know who we are not as well, is just as important, and not worry about what we don't have, but embrace what we do have and know our place in the big jigsaw puzzle of the world. It's where we can just let go of that control that we think we need to have over everything. Do you think that, like in your business, do you think that's what plays a part when we're trying to control all the different pieces that we're not necessarily gifted in, or
Well, I really talk to that from ego. I'm very intrigued by ego. I do a lot of study and research and in personal investigation on it. And I think that, again, it's seeking outside of ourselves to find value or to define ourselves, you know? You assume that martyr role. Why do you assume that martyr role? Because it makes you feel accomplished, for you to have done all that, for you to be needed so much. You know, we keep following the hierarchy of the ladder. You know, we keep chasing the next level we can get to, the next level to do that. Why do we do that? Because is that highest level really what we want inside, or does it look wonderful to our community, or does it make us feel more accomplished?
That's a
piece.
Yeah. And do we not look internal because we don't want to know what's in there? So
absolutely,
if we keep looking externally and focusing externally, then we don't have to know what's going on internally, because that can be quite a scary and confronting.
It is.
Vision.
And a lot of people, you know, I believe in this mantra and follow it wholeheartedly. We can only do what we can with the awareness that we have. Some people in this lifetime are not cut out to move into a deeper space any further than kind of their exterior world. And that's okay.
Yeah.
They're not meant to go any deeper.
Yeah.
For me, this lifetime, apparently, I'm going all the way down to the bottom. I'm digging as far deep as you can, and that's okay. I'm up for the journey.
Yeah.
But once you open that can of worms, it's full of worms.
It's like Pandora's box.
It is.
The trick is when you do open that is to just embrace everything and not look at it as good or bad, but just all as part of a unique, amazing, wonderful package that is you. And your whole journey of life is not good or bad, but it's just your journey that got you to here. And instead of labeling everything, because we've learned how to label everything, and we should, like, if you could learn not to label everything and place it in a, that was good, that was bad. Some things were helpful, some things weren't helpful, but just embrace and go, that was me. I did that. That's part of who I am. Yep. I love this whole package. I think we would be set free of all the limitations that we have and that we put on ourselves.
100%. 100%. And kind of really embracing that life's happening for us and not to us. So those learnings that didn't feel like learnings, they were just opportunities for us to see something different, to broaden our perspective. And I think if we can take every opportunity as an opportunity essentially, every circumstance, every challenge, every crossroad as an opportunity to see something new or to adopt a new perspective, then life continues to happen for us.
Yeah. It's not happening to us. I like that. And just embracing the good, the bad, and the ugly, embracing everything as moments in your full journey, and opportunities to grow. I like that. Yeah, that's right.
And it's that law of polarity, right? Like what swings right has to swing left. How can we feel joy, happiness, contentment, serenity, peace if we don't feel challenge, anguish, all of those things? We need to swing right and left. It's impossible to hang around here, and we want to avoid hanging around here. So
it's exactly
taking both and then being able to find that medium and not being so this is the meditation piece in me, not being so reactive to the joy, happy, because that's the other part. I certainly don't work with young people or women and help them seek happiness. We don't want to latch onto something that's like, subjective. We just want to see it, accept it, feel it, embrace it, and then be neutral.
But it's part of life. It's just part of that, what makes life. And it's about that, just coming back to that. I think that's a really good analogy, is like the swinging pendulum, is finding that spot here where your spirit can sit while the subjectivity of life goes backwards and forwards like this, which is basically psychological well-being, is that constant. The subjective well-being goes backwards and forwards it's determined by what's happening in your life. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And so I'm going to leave links to your Talking Youth podcast, because I think it's really essential. If you're a mum out there that's got kids that you would really like them to learn about how awesome they are already, instead of having to discover it 30, 40 years later, you can check out Fiona's Talking Youth podcast. And I'll also leave Fiona's link to her website, so you can learn more about what she does as well with the On Purpose and Reclaiming Your Light. But Fiona, thank you so much for sharing, part of your journey, being so vulnerable with us, and just, I can see your passion for helping other people find their light and just shining and standing in their truth. It's just so gorgeous to see.
Oh, thank you, Fiona. This is such a beautiful initiative. So I wish you all the best, and I'm really honoured to have been on your show.
Thank you so much. Well, I was honoured to have you here. So, this show is all about shining the light on other women and just standing in your awesome right here, right now, where you are. And so I thank you, and thank you for watching another episode of No Ordinary Woman. And I already said that. I'll leave Fiona's links in the description for this video, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, Fiona.
Thanks, Fiona. Take care. See ya.
Bye for now.